Hello everyone, this is Christina and today I'm finally going to try and show you how to make Calix for English rose or any other rose for that matter. I'm going to be using a very easily accessible Calix cutter, and I'm going to try to remember to put all the information on it, or at least some of the information on it, in my description. So let's go. The thickness of the clay here, it's kind of not too thin and not too thick. I'd say it's about medium, and Calix is surprisingly tricky to make, or at least it's not that tricky to make, but I found it quite tricky to make because I used to try to make it really sophisticated, and then I realized that I couldn't really make it to my liking. There was something missing. It wasn't quite the right shape, the way I was trying to shape it before. So, and to me at least, it took a long while to realize how it actually works. I don't know if I'm overthinking here, but anyway, I hope that someone finds it useful, because I certainly would have if I had thought of looking at the video of Calix done, kind of just the basics of Rose Calyx. So yeah, if you find it useful yourself, then please do remember to leave a like, because that's kind of a cool thing to do. So for this one, it's important to find the right bowl tool, okay? Because if you get it too big, this bowl tool, you'll kind of squish your calyx, and if it's too small, then obviously it's going to make it bumpy and unnatural looking. So if you pay attention to the scissors I'm using here, I'm using a bent end scissors. They might have a specific name, I don't know, but they turned in to repeat the curved shape of this little piece of my calyx, and it's important to turn it right way around. I suggest that you try it both ways and you see the difference, because it's quite tricky to explain, and my camera doesn't seem to do very extreme close-ups very well. So, and not just mine actually, when it comes to these things, I found. By the way, if anyone knows a good video camera that makes good close-ups reliably, as opposed to unreliably like mine, do please drop me a line. I'm on the market for a new camera. If I find a really good one, that's also a reasonable value. So if you like the way I'm making this calyx and how it looks, then you are kind of going to get a good value out of this video, because once you've seen it done once, it's kind of bagged. You won't have to go and try to kind of figure out, and it wouldn't be too complicated. So the reason why I've taken off these little segments of the mono calyx cutout is because on a mono piece it just was not going to shape in the shape that I liked. I've tried it several times, and that calyx I liked anyway, calyx cutter, but there was something not quite right about it, and now I quite like this look. Basically the neck that was attaching each segment to the center of the calyx, it was just too thick. You see, I'm kind of shaping it up a little bit better, and if it wasn't calyx but something else, shaping each individual element would have been a right pain. But because you only have one calyx and would have probably spent a good few hours on making the rose, calyx would be a walk in the park. So here we go. In a nice tradition of cold porcelain flowers, I am making a cold porcelain clay stem to kind of fit the whole picture, and I think it's a beautiful tradition that allows for really beautiful artistic stems. I would not necessarily try it with gum paste because I think it might just crumble. I haven't tried, so I don't know. If you have, do leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. But actually, seeing that the traditional wire and paper stems of the sugar flowers are not exactly edible, there is no reason why you wouldn't want to make cold porcelain stem for your sugar flowers, just to give it that little bit of an edge. I don't know. But so basically, gum paste probably wouldn't work for it. You don't have to have this metal stick to fiddle with that bit. You can use your really nice and beautiful Dresden stick, which I love and to which I'm really loyal. But metal stick is nice, and you could buy something similar just out of metal. Metal just seemed to work a little bit better on a whole with cold porcelain. Doesn't matter in one element of it, but on a whole it seemed to be a little bit friendlier to cold porcelain. And as you can see here, because I've cut this calyx down anyway, the whole thing is coming across a little bit too small for my liking, the whole calyx, but it just about gets away with it. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but yeah. And here you'll see in a minute, or in a second rather, you'll see this finished calyx in the top part of the stem as dry. It may look a little bit fiddly and uneven when it's wet at the end, but when it dries, it tends to be favorable to the finished flower. It tends to dry and look kind of straighter than it does right here at this point. And where I make this a very smooth finish at the end of this piece of stem is because I narrow it to nothing, and that is because if you do it like this, it's a lot easier to attach little branches with leaves, but also when your petal is completely dry, or if it's completely dry and you need to take a break, it's much easier then to add a little bit more clay and just keep going and making it longer. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is a little element that goes next to the branch that attaches itself to a stem of the main flower. Generally it's a rose, and basically it just gives it that little sophistication that kind of, in my mind at least, associates itself with the idea of botanical sculpture as opposed to just making a flower. I hope some of it makes sense. But anyway, when I say done properly, I am just trying my hand at it here. It's the first time I'm doing it, and I'm hoping that it's looking okay, and obviously it would have a lot of room for improvement, like tons. So here I'm attaching that little branch with leaves with super glue. I'll come back to that later. Super glue here is a must, not to add thickness to the stem, unnecessary thickness, but attaching it with super glue has its own problems. You really have to make sure it sticks. But anyway, back to our little, whatever they call. Please give me a shout. One of you must know what they call these little things. So please leave me a note in the comments below. And here, if you can be bothered to pay attention to detail as small as this, I am turning my scissors away. As opposed to when I was doing Calix, I was turning the bend along with the natural bend of the Calix, but here I'm turning them away, and so they make the little strands here stick out. And yes, I'm going to add them onto the little branch. I've tried adding it onto the main branch and it doesn't work as well. No, it doesn't work as well. So I'm going to try to make a little gap to insert that little branch better so it holds on, has more area to hold on, you know, surface area as in physics. And so I tried to do it and then dry it and then add the little branch. And yeah, it could be done either way. If you add it to a dry branch, then you just have less mess and a nicer little stem. But if you'd forgotten to make one of these gaps, then or rather not forgotten but don't have the time to dry it and then do it, then you could also do it, add it afresh as well. It's just going to be a little bit trickier. And so here is just super glue, and I've decided to add a little bit, a little teeny weeny bit of floral tape. As you could see, I kind of segmented it next to nothing, just to give it a little bit of extra security in case my super glue will turn out not to be quite as super as I'm hoping it would be. So here you see how I finish off a little branch that I have. This particular rose is not a very tall one. Whenever I can, I leave a whole length of the wire. This is number 18. By the way, I normally use 18 for all this kind of thing. And so if I narrow down the amount of clay I have on my stem, it just makes it so much easier for me to add some clay later when I want to make a longer stem, or if I wanted to cover the whole stem. And this is it. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I do hope that if you were planning to put a like there, you did, and I will see you all next week. Have a lovely, lovely weekend. Happy days. Loads of smiles.